back to Community Hotline. I'm Monica Weitzel, and we're here in Gresham at MetroEast Community Media. Now for my second guest tonight. We're going to be talking with Dr. Mike Powers. Nice to have you here, Mike.
Nice to be here.
You are now the Center Director for the Cystic Fibrosis Center at OHSU.
That's correct.
When we met, gosh, it's been about 20 years, maybe 25 years ago, a long time ago. You were just starting out doctor. You were a fledgling, so now you're the center director. Can you tell our viewers, for those who don't really know very much about cystic fibrosis, kind of in simple terms, exactly what it is?
You bet. Cystic fibrosis, and we also call it CF, is a genetic disease that's inherited from the parents.
Both parents?
Both parents are carriers for the disorder, but they don't have the disease. But 1 in 4 children of 2 parents that are carriers will be affected by the disease. It affects the lungs and the digestive tract in children and in adults. And currently in Oregon, it's about 1 in 3,000 births children will have cystic fibrosis.
Now, parents don't always know that they're carriers. Usually don't.
Most parents don't know that they are carriers.
Yeah. So when a parent finds out that their child has cystic fibrosis, it's a pretty traumatic thing. So what do they do? What are the symptoms that a parent would look for? And tell me also about the testing ahead of time, because now isn't that part of the genetic testing that they do?
Right. So over the last almost 7 years, the state of Oregon now has newborn screening for cystic fibrosis. It's part of the test that babies get at 2 days and 2 weeks of age. So that's
all babies.
For all babies to get screened for it. So we pick up infants now, and often now it's children in infancy are diagnosed, and we get them right into the center right away and educate the families and support them with our full team.
So it's much better for the child, obviously, if they get in right away, so they know how to deal with their symptoms.
That's correct.
Things like the digestive system in the lungs, but not, an inability to breathe very well. So asthma-like symptoms.
Right. The kids will either have kind of recurrent pneumonias because the bronchial tubes are affected in CF, or they will not grow very well, and we call that failure to thrive. So most children prior to newborn screening were picked up by 2 years of age, but unfortunately children were picked up at later ages as well, and children born prior to 7 years ago are still being what we call a late diagnosis. So
that's always amazing. So those are cases that have
maybe milder symptoms or symptoms that were more subtle, and then finally something occurs that makes the physician think about cystic fibrosis.
So if 1 in 4 children, so for example, I had a son with cystic fibrosis, as you know, but my daughter did not have it.
Right.
She was tested, and she is not a carrier, so she will never pass it on.
That's correct.
Okay. So in the past 20 years or so, there's been a lot of changes. How have the treatments changed for the cystic fibrosis patients?
Well, up till about 1990, I would say the most changes were newer and better antibiotics, and those are medicines to treat infection. The major problem with children and adults with cystic fibrosis is recurrent and chronic lung infections. So up until about 1990, newer antibiotics were developed that help treat the infections more effectively. Since about 1995, there's been 2 or 3 newer therapies, medicines that are inhaled into the lungs and help thin the mucus and help clear thick mucus out of the lungs, as well as inhaled antibiotics have been developed. So antibiotics are inhaled directly into the lung, help fight infection. And then just a recognition of better nutrition over the last 10 years has really been pushed. So better nutrition has really helped people stay healthier.
That's great. I know that when kids with cystic fibrosis, when they breathe, it was described to me as having glue in their lungs. Like we have the cilia that helps us move all the contaminants out of our lungs, but theirs, it just sticks in there, and so they're always coughing and
unfortunately their bronchial tubes get plugged up with thick mucus. So the medicines that we use help try to thin it so they can get it out more easily and open up their airways, and then reduce sort of the development of the mucus by fighting infection. There's been more recently some great breakthroughs in terms of therapies, therapies that actually help correct the underlying defect of cystic fibrosis.
You know, that sounds like close to a cure. I mean, that's a really big deal. I remember when they isolated the gene that caused cystic fibrosis. That was a huge thing, and everybody thought there's going to be a cure really soon. Well, it was a lot more complicated than they thought.
That was 1988.
Yeah, I remember it very well, and you know, it was a really big deal.
Right.
Unfortunately, things didn't move as fast as they expected, and people still want a cure because it's not a curable disease. But it sounds to me like, from what you're saying and what I've heard, that it's almost like if with the improved treatments that it isn't necessarily a cure that they'll be getting, but these kids could live a full and a normal length life.
That's our hope.
I mean,
we're
is
not
that,
quite,
I mean, is that kind of where the
our
direction
hope,
it's going right now?
And the new medications, some have been approved for a small proportion of our patients. About 5% of our patients are on a medication that is actually stabilizing and controlling their disease by correcting the underlying defect. And the underlying defect is a defect in a chloride channel, and chloride is part of salt. And if the chloride gets out of balance, then the water gets out of balance in your lungs, and you get thicker mucus.
And that's how they've tested for cystic fibrosis in the
With
past.
a
was
sweat chloride test, that's correct.
Yeah, and that's still how they do it?
We still use that. We use a lot of genetic testing now. Since we have therapies that are directed by the underlying genetics, we also look at the genetics for all patients, but still we do sweat chloride tests every day up at the hospital.
Kids still have to be pounded on the chest. I mean, I remember hand pounding, you know, but now they have vests,
We
right?
don't do so much hand pounding anymore. There's newer therapies, there's different devices that can blow in to help lift the mucus out of the airway wall and help them cough it out. It's called PEP. They also do a thing called flutter, and we do what's called a therapy vest. It's a vest that they put on their chest, and different levels of vibration and oscillation help loosen up everything and get it out.
Wow.
Right.
That's great. I mean, it's a really,
and that's very common. That's a new advance too.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, say, 10 years ago.
A lot big time saver for those parents. I'll tell you that. They could be busy making dinner. The Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, they've been around for a long time, and I think when they started out, they were more of a support group, if I remember correctly. I mean, I remember going to support meetings,
right?
You know, and they did things for the families. But back then, CF kids would hang out together.
Right.
But then that was found that that's not safe for them because they infect each other. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, we used to have cystic fibrosis camp every summer, and the kids would really support each other and psychologically support each other with a chronic disease. But in the early 90s, we found out, though, that bacteria then could be passed from one patient to another. And unfortunately, certain bacteria are worse for your health, so we wanted to prevent that. So there isn't that activity of kids getting together, but now they're doing it via Facebook and Skyping and chat rooms, things like that. So
and that's great. That's, I mean,
wonderful.
especially for kids with CF, because they don't have the physical capabilities, a lot of them, to get out there. As you know, I can only speak for my son, but he, but by the end he could walk a block and he'd be winded, and and so but there's different levels, aren't there? There's different levels, and there's different mutations of the gene, so it's not one. No one patient is the same as the next one.
That's the complexity of the disease.
Yeah.
It's one protein that's defective, and there's one gene that's defective, but there's several hundred mutations that can cause different types of mutations, and that's defective proteins. So it's broken into different classes of severity,
which makes it tougher to
predict the future for families.
To predict the future, or to find something that's going to treat it. I would think, because you have to have something for every different mutation or different. Protein.
There's one common mutation that occurs in 50% of our patients that have 2 copies of the mutation. 90% of the patients have 1 copy of the mutation. So a big focus of the research is on the common mutation, but the foundation also knows there's these other more rare mutations. So the goal is to find a treatment for all mutations. And how could we not do that for all of our patients, right? I
think what really impresses me about the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is that if it weren't for them, there would probably be no research done on it at all. It'd be very little.
They were the major factor, the major push. and their major role is to support research.
Right.
And they also support the care centers too. So they provide some infrastructure support for our center at OHSU, and they also fund research at a clinical level as well as a bench level in the laboratory. And they've, that's their main goal is to find a cure. So that's where they've put their resources.
Yeah, because if a disease doesn't have either enough people to do it, or if it's not going to be a real money maker, I mean, isn't that unfortunately kind of?
It's an orphan disease, so the National Institute of Health classifies the disease of less than 200,000 patients as an orphan disease. Nationally, we have about 30,000 CF patients. And I just did some calculations in my head. We have about 430 to 40 CF patients in the state of Oregon.
Really?
So it's that rare.
Yeah. It's a lot of people know somebody that has it, but it's not like cancer or something where everybody has somebody in their family with it.
But doing research on rare diseases has taught people how to then translate those breakthroughs to more common diseases. So that's how they're often funded as well.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that makes sense. One of the biggest fundraisers for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is their Great Strides Walk, which is coming up on May 3rd. Yes, May 3rd. I was like, I've got something going on the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. I had to remember which one it was. I think we have some pictures from
past
previous walks.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that we can take a look at. It's a fun event.
It's a really fun
family event. Yeah. You've been there. How many? Do you go every year? Hey, now, see, there's my group. That's Rory's Rowdies, named after my son. Rory, that's my daughter holding the sign there with Ron Wyden.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm hanging out with Ron there.
It looks like Oaks Park.
Yeah.
It's where we've held it for the past several years.
Yes. So everybody comes to a team. There we are, a different year.
Yeah, a sunny year.
Yeah, so we have a team of family and friends.
Right.
And when my son was alive, he went with us. He walked with us too, and was very proud to raise money.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the big lunch.
Yeah, that's right. Lunch, and the kids go on the rides at Oaks Park.
Yeah, and they get in the first however how many get the free bracelets. So
that's correct.
There we are walking on the walk. So, and we started out at Oaks Park and used to walk along the Springwater corridor, but I like it a lot better now. We walked up through the.
Now we're going through the Selwood neighborhood. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And I like the dog over there. That's good. People come and they walk for people that in memory of people they've lost, or they walk for their child that has it now, or their family member or whatever. Look at all the people that are there. Huge groups of families and friends gather for that. Yeah.
And it really excites people, and it pumps them up. And I talk to new patients and say, you need to come because you'll be so supported by other families.
Yeah. And it's people that know what you're going through. If you're a CF patient, or if you're the family, cystic fibrosis sucks. Yes, it does. Now that's a kind of a scary looking animal there. I don't know.
We're going to have some local superheroes come to the walk this year.
Oh.
Yeah, there's an organization of young professionals that dress up as superheroes.
I heard about that. That would be fun. So
a lot of fun for the kids.
Are you one of them? Mm-hmm.
I won't be dressing up.
You're not wearing tights this time?
No.
No, thank you.
No.
That'll be fun. So the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation has this walk every year, and it's all across the country.
That's correct.
Different dates. But if people want to support it, they can. If you know somebody, I have, my walk. You probably have your walk, so you could go online and type in your name or type in my name, or just type in
the city or a zip code.
Yeah, and be able to support it. You can just donate online. So the money's collected ahead of time.
Yep.
And people walk, and it doesn't matter how far you walk, but this is a 5K walk.
Yeah, it's a fun walk.
Yeah, it is. It's fun, and you walk all through the neighborhood and through the park, if people just have somebody that they know that has it, it's a great way to support them, just to show up,
Very much so.
Walk.
We get our dietitians, our social workers, our nurses, our respiratory therapists, our whole team comes. Basic scientists from OHSU come up there that do research on CF. They make a team. And it's great.
Yeah, I know that some of the nurses and the people from the hospital have the best names for their teams, the mucus busters or something.
Yeah, we used to be the mucus plug busters.
There was.
I got more politically correct this year.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Just call her OHSU Dornbecker.
It's not very creative, but that's okay. That's okay. So if people are interested, they can go on the website and they can find out how to do it. And
it's the CF Foundation website. Yeah.
CFF Oregon.
CFF.org.
.org. Okay.
You just type in Great Strides and type in the zip code or Portland, and our walk will come up.
Yeah. They have them in Vancouver,
Vancouver, Salem,
down in Southern Oregon, I think.
and Central Oregon too is going to have a walk as well.
So tell me something that will give people with CF kids hope for their future. Real quick to wrap it up here.
Well, the hope for the future, I think, when I started in this, I started as a fellow in '88 and was on the faculty in '91. Our survival was in the 20s, and now it's close to 40.
Okay.
And I tell newborns, we hope you're going to have you're going to retire.
That'd be great.
So that's our hope and our
That
goal
is hope.
long term.
Thank you very much, Dr. Powers.
All right,
I
thank you.
appreciate it. We're out of time, so thanks for being here, and thanks for watching this segment of Community Hotline. I hope you've learned something about cystic fibrosis, and that if you know somebody that has this disease, or even if you don't, try to find out more about it. If you want to support us, you know where to go, and we appreciate that support. Stick with us. We're going to be right back with more of Community Hotline.